you're someone that even as an old dude look up to.
Everyone has to hit a rock bottom.
Those are things that not many people your age have done.
I kind of deserved it.
And that's the scary thing.
A little controversial.
All it was about was getting drunk, getting in fights.
I kind of got screwed over by my business partner on that. I was like, what can I sell these guys? The guy's like, I just want to make money.
I just want to say a huge thank you to Pathwater, one of the sponsors of Unbound Living. These are water bottles that I do not go anywhere without. I constantly refill it, reuse it. I drop salt in it. It's one of the best things that I've ever come across. If you have not tried Pathwater, you need to. Well, again, we've got a fella that I am extremely excited to have back.
Oh, thanks, man.
Lukas, you know, you're someone that I, even as an old dude, look up to. And one of the reasons why I'm going to say that is I did not have the drive that you have at your age. And I want to start from the beginning, right? I'd like you to introduce yourself again. Most people know you. You did cut off the Samson hair, man. You know, yeah. You did.
Gotta change my identity. Well, first of all, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes.
I don't know if I deserve that, but yeah, I like to change my identity every like 6 months. I feel like it allows you to, it gives you an excuse to like become a new person.
Yep.
You know, I hate living in the same apartment for more than a year or two max. I try and change out my look every couple years. So yeah, I feel like a new person now, I guess. But yeah, I guess what the best place to start?
Yeah, and you know, real quick, you know, yeah, no, absolutely. We started a new podcast called Unbound Living, and one of the reasons is I like dealing with individuals that think outside the box and do things that are not normal, right? And I look at your generation, which I'm actually, you know, I've got a ton of hope for, right? There's a couple generations in there that didn't do a whole lot of anything, you know, and at the end of the day, your generation is more hustlers. And so it gives me great hope for the future. But with that said, I know that just knowing you personally and stuff like that, you have had several businesses.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't look at failure as failure. I look at that as learning experiences and things like that. Hopefully things that you don't do again, or something that you can kind of forecast and see in the future so you don't do it again.
Yeah.
What was one of the very first businesses that you had?
One of the very first, well, I mean, it depends what you consider a business. Like, does a lemonade stand count?
Absolutely.
So
right?
the first business I had was like I hired all my friends. I was like 9 years old. I hired all my friends to go to 4th of July festivals and sell glow sticks. So I wouldn't consider that like a real business, but that got me into the salesman entrepreneur mindset. Because instead of like, I wanted money, right? I was a kid. I played this game. You've probably heard of it, Clash of Clans, like a phone game. And I wanted to like level up as fast as possible. In order to do that, you needed to like pay to win, right? You had to buy the gems. So I was like, how can I get money? I'm 9 years old. So I was at 4th of July festivals every year. It was a big thing in our hometown, a couple towns over. And I saw all these kids like running around playing tag and shit. And I was like, what can I sell these guys? You know, so I had this idea, like I'm gonna buy a ton of glow sticks in bulk prior to 4th of July when they were really cheap. So I got them like April, March maybe. Bought like every dollar I had, and a couple $100, I just threw it into glow sticks, which gave me like sale value, inventory value, like, you know, a few $1,000s worth. And then I just hired my friends, and it was such a great product and a good marketing lesson for me because the customers would do the selling for you. So like one kid would buy a glow stick and he would run around, you know, like we had like wristbands and glasses and like twirly things and all these different like types of glow stuff, right? And it was dark out, it's 4th of July, so there's all these people. If you see one little kid, if the other kids saw like one little kid wearing the glow sticks, I wouldn't even have to like convince them to buy it. They would go tell their mom, like, I want one. And the mom would have to give them the money or else the kid would be complaining and upset the whole night. And it's, you know, 4th of July, so you want the family to be happy. So they would just say, all right, fine. Here's the $5, right?
That's awesome.
And I literally, like, within getting there, I sold out in like a couple of minutes, probably like 20 minutes. And I made like a couple $1,000 as a little kid.
Wow.
But this is also a really good story too. I'll try and summarize it quickly. I had my first like real business, I would say. I started a hand sanitizer company during COVID. Because I was like, how can I jump on the train? It was flying off the shelves. A normal bottle of hand sanitizer was like $2.50, and they were selling for like $25 at the store. And the store was sold out. Like no one could get them. And I grew up in Napa Valley. Lots of like white moms who were super COVID sensitive, you could say. Like they were very like, this is the end of the world. And so I was like, what a great market. And
soccer moms in yoga pants.
Oh my God. And they had money too. So we had my buddy and I had this idea of like, we're gonna create like a really high-end premium hand sanitizer. And so we had like these really cool bottles that we made. I could show you too. Yeah. Really cool designs. We called it Sugar Baby. So it's kind of funny. And the whole goal was like, we're going to sell these in winery gift shops because these moms, after their tours, they're going to be kind of drunk. They're going to be having a good time. Oh my God, look at this cute little Sugar Baby hand sanitizer, selling it for like an extremely high margin. And I thought it was a great idea. But I kind of got screwed over by my business partner on that, got pushed out of the business. But here's what I'll say. I kind of deserved it. This is a lesson I learned a lesson I learned later down the line, because just because you're working hard doesn't mean that you're actually useful. You know what I mean? I was working really hard on this business, and I was putting in a ton of hours, you could say.
Sweat equity.
Right? Like, so I put in, we started this thing at the beginning of the summer, right after like sophomore year of college, freshman year of college. And I put in, hundreds of hours over the summer. But I didn't really actually like do anything that was useful to the business. And I got kind of pushed out because it was my friend and his dad put up the money, and they were like, what is Lukas even doing? I got pushed out, was really upset, bitter about that for a long time. I was like, my own best friend screwed me over. And I didn't realize until, a few years later when I had a business partner in another venture, and it was kind of like the opposite situation. Like I was really the one moving the business forward in every single way, and the other guy was kind of just like floating around. That business no longer exists. That I realized like I got pushed out because I wasn't actually useful. I wasn't actually doing anything. And I think, the guy went about it the wrong way. There was probably a better way he could have done it, but
communication's everything.
For sure. But it's such a great lesson. Like just because you're working hard doesn't actually mean that you're making the business better. Yeah. I think you should be doing both. But yeah, never.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good lesson to learn.
No, it's kind of funny you bring up hand sanitizer, because being in the building industry, we had to, they rewrote codes. We had to have it on job sites, hand wash stations, all sorts of crazy stuff. So we were buying the shit in like 5-gallon buckets. And so I kid you not, about 2 months ago in storage, threw away a 5-gallon bucket of that stuff, like one of the last ones that we had, and to your point, you couldn't find that stuff anywhere, and we had to have it in bulk. And we actually bought it, funny thing, from some gift shop in Westlake that they were selling kind of out of the back door, and of all places, right? And we paid ridiculous amounts of money for it because we had these massive dispensers that we had to have on site before an inspector would even show up, even though we were an essential business and all this stuff.
No, it was crazy. And literally that's what happened in Napa too. There were wineries that had distilleries behind their winery that were, because like you know how you have the gel hand sanitizer and then you have the alcohol? Gel used to be the thing, and then during COVID, people just wanted alcohol to put on their hands, so people started using ethanol. Oh, and wow. So, I didn't know that. And they were using like spray and like, it used to always be gel. Gel was hand sanitizer. Yep. And then during COVID, people were using the sprays because you could hold more in the bottle, you would use less.
I would prefer that over anything.
Yeah, no, it's way better, and because the gel makes your hands sticky and shit. Yeah. So there were wineries that were making a killing, and they just stopped their bottle production because no one was visiting the wineries drinking anyway. Yep. But they could turn their bottling facility into like hand sanitizer facilities. Yep.
I was always of the mindset, again, I grew up drinking from a hose, and, if you got hurt, you just rub some dirt on it. And, so I never got into the hand sanitizer thing, and of course I got in a little bit of trouble. It's a little vocal about it and things at times, but it is what it is. And I'm glad we're past that, and hopefully everybody's learned a little bit from it as well.
For sure.
Young entrepreneur. there had to be a mentor in your life or someone you look to, because most kids, parents go to a 9-to-5 job and they don't see individuals that own their own business and see that there is actually a freedom, a supposed freedom to it, right? Everybody always says, oh, you own your own business, it must be great. You must have all this time off. And they just don't understand it's a 24-hour deal, no matter what. Who was one of those inspirations and or mentors that you had at a young age, or that at least stood out that you thought?
That's a good question. I never really had like a full mentor. A friend of my dad's was, maybe you could say, like
an inspiration.
Maybe, an inspiration of sorts. A friend of my dad who was my dad was a doctor, so like did well for himself, but wasn't like a businessman by any means. And but my dad's a really smart guy. But my dad's best friend was big commercial real estate guy, very successful, and when I was a kid, I just wanted to be rich, honestly. I was like, I just want to make money. And so I asked him, I was like, can I, come work for you? And he pretty much told me no. And I went and spent a weekend with him. Finally, he agreed to it. And he's like, you don't get this. He's like, it just doesn't make sense to you. This guy was tough, to be honest. He said some outrageous stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
But
sometimes that's what you need, though, right? You need someone to say something in a way that is going to grab your attention. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but
for sure. But he was maybe like someone that opened my eyes to like leverage and money. But he was commercial real estate. I was trying to be, and I actually worked for him for a little, interned for him, and I actually was like making TikToks and shit while I was doing social media like while I was supposed to be working for him. Because the real estate stuff, like real estate's great, but it was a little too boring for me, honestly.
It can be. It's mundane.
Some people
right?
love it though, and I totally understand that.
And it's a matter of, the thing that I like about it is every project's a little bit different, right? And so we get to play with the creative aspect, and change stuff up every single time we do something. We learn something from the project prior to, and how do we change it and how do we make it better? But if all I did was sell real estate, that'd get kind of mundane.
Well, you're actually working on some cool projects. He was just building like medical office buildings.
Oh,
It was where there's like rinse and repeat, great margin, great business model. He told me that it was the best type of commercial real estate to be in, because like doctors never go out of business, it's recession proof, all this stuff. So
you got to look at things in any type of business, right? You got to look at things that people are always going to need. We're a society of convenience. You'll always need food. I'm huge into trades, just because trades have diminished. There's no young guys taking over electricians roles and plumbing roles, and those are the new 6-figure income earners for sure. And even in the plumbing industry, to start out in plumbing, you're making $70,000+ to start, because they can't find anybody. So they have to pay that amount. But those industries that you need, and again, that convenience factor. And plus, as individuals, we don't care to learn things like that. So there's a lot of people that just don't know how to do certain things around the house or things like that. So those little convenience things will always be around. But the other thing is, people will always want to look good, and they will always want to feel good as well. So that's also one of those needs.
Beauty, alcohol, those do very well. Yeah.
What's funny is I was reading numbers, and alcohol in bad economic times has always skyrocketed.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you've seen, alcohol sales have plummeted. And I don't know if it's due to a lot of this, even during South by. There's been a ton of awareness for health and fitness, especially this go round, which kind of leads me into what you're doing now, right? Tell me a little bit about what you got going on.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, I fully agree with you. And I think it's funny. I think a lot of like successful people in the past used to be like pretty big drinkers, like, especially like big successful businessmen would like drink every single night before going to bed. And these days, the most successful people usually are trying to like completely cut out alcohol, because they understand that health is wealth and all that. But yeah, I mean, great segue. So for anyone who's like new, doesn't know much about me, I have a fitness brand, activewear brand. It's called Squidhaus. Some people call it Squidhaus. Mike's actually an investor of ours. So
yes. And again, I invest in people, not necessarily companies. However, what I can say, and we're going to start doing more stuff with this, is the quality of your product is insane.
Thanks, man.
So I love it.
Appreciate it.
And with that said, again, I don't care if you're selling Post-it notes. I want to invest in you and hopefully help somewhere along the line to make this bigger and badder.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. And it does mean a lot. And Mike's wearing one of our shirts right now.
Yep.
I'm wearing one of the hoodies. It's not solidified yet, but we're trying to poach the head designer from a really big activewear brand. I wouldn't even consider them a competitor of ours because they're way bigger than way bigger than us. But I was on the phone with him and my team the other day, and if that goes through, it would be huge for us.
That could be incredible.
Because I think we have like the manufacturer capabilities. Like we have some great manufacturers. The guys on our team that are designing, they're good at what they do, but they're not like expert designers. When you're a startup, you can't really go for like the top of the line talent in the beginning. You go for like the people who are hungry and who are willing to try and figure it out and stuff. And so, if we get this guy, that'd be awesome. But,
and it's constantly evolving too, right? Things are going to change, styles are going to change, things of that nature. I'm a huge fan of the sweatsuits.
Oh yeah,
they're super heavy. I like the oversized sweatshirt. I've actually got an area. I stopped folding them. And I started last night, literally, Bristol and I had this conversation. I was like, I'm out of drawer space. So she was like, why don't you just start hanging them all up? So now I've got them all hung up and stuff like that. But,
I hang them up too. Yeah. I think that's the way to go. I kind of have like a whole thing. I have like these like rollable hangers all over my apartment for all the products we've had over the years.
Yep. I've got one of those in my bedroom with my wife's clothes on it as well. Nice. So I need to start taking it over.
We got to make women's stuff soon. We'll get to that at the end of the year. I'm really excited for that. I think women's clothes will honestly do better than men's for us, especially with our whole like motto, or call it brand personality, is based on this idea of, it's a little controversial, real body positivity, because we think real body positivity is not like looking in the mirror and saying like, I love what I see, regardless of whatever that is. It's like striving to be the best, right? The best version of yourself, physically, mentally. So what we do to support that and supporting real body positivity is, and I think you know this, Mike, if you buy our gear and then you lose weight or you gain weight, you change sizes, we'll send you a new item in your new size for free.
Which I don't know anybody that's doing that.
Nobody does it. I've never heard of anyone. And it was crazy because whenever people hear that, they're like, oh my God, that's insane. I go, it really wasn't that hard to come up with, honestly. I've never heard of anyone doing that before. And it's actually, economically, it really makes sense for your brand, because if you go from an XXL to a large, or a small to a large, let's say you bulk up or gain weight, you're going to need to replace your entire wardrobe anyway. Which sucks, honestly. Like, you got to replace. I mean, you feel good about yourself. You're fitting out. By the way, the shirt in the back's coming up a little bit. If you want to pull it down. Oh. There you go. For the clips. There
you go.
Nice. But yeah, if you change sizes, you're going to have to replace everything anyway.
Yeah.
So if a company sends you a free product, not only just the kindness of that, law of reciprocity, you want to pay it back, you want to pay it forward. But, oh, wow, this actually is like really nice, right? So even if like someone orders, let's say like an old shirt from a year ago, and then over a year they lose 30, 40 pounds, or a couple sizes smaller, I might just send them one of the new releases. That way, they're more likely to buy a couple of them. You know what I mean? So economically, it makes sense. It's not like we're losing money on that, because the person's going to go buy more anyway. They're probably going to share it with their friends. They're going to post about it.
And from a marketing standpoint, at the end of the day, right? Because again, no one's doing that. You don't see Lulu doing that. You don't see all these other people doing that as well. Yeah. And I will put your stuff side by side, if not better, than all of those guys, hands down. The shorts, everything else. I like a heavier short, but then there's times where I like a lighter short, and you've got both of them covered.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to necessarily make a commercial for you, but if you open my drawer, that's all I have is your shit in there. So, and everything else has slowly been phased out, from, the 10,000 to the Lulu stuff to you name it. It's all just kind of been phased out. So
I love that, man.
And I always try to represent, man. So
every time I see Mike wearing our stuff more than I do, to be honest, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Last time I pulled up here, to collect the check. I wasn't even wearing our gear, and Mike was fully decked out. I was like, oh no, this is such a bad look.
I know.
But yeah, we appreciate it.
But it's comfy. It's good shit, you know?
And it's really dope. I think the coolest thing is to have like older...
Say it.
Say,
old.
Well, I was going to say older
Over
killers.
50.
I was going to say older guys, like, you know, because we started as like a brand for like the young go-getter, I like to say. And, you know, I looked at our demographics, at least with our ads the other day, and majority of our customers were in the, I believe it was 24 to 48 range, which is great. And I like that. I'm stoked about that, actually. So
100%. And the thing is us older people, and I say older, I'm 50, you know, 50 is a new 30. I'm going to say that. I don't know if it's right or not.
You look good for a man.
However, I appreciate that, you know, and you got to strive to do that. And I think that that's something, unfortunately, over generations has been lost, is people get to a certain age and they feel like they don't have to take care of themselves anymore, and they get in ruts, and, you know, your health declines and things like that. I'm a fighter. I'm going to, you know, I want the opposite, right? I was more unhealthy as a young dude than I am now. So with that said, as you get older, you realize that you spend quality money on quality products that will last you a while. And I started that with tools years ago. I would buy a ridiculously expensive drill, you know, 20 years ago because I still have it today, right? And so you start to recognize those things. So I don't mind spending money on clothing that I know will last, right?
Have you ever heard of Boots Theory? Do you know what that is?
Tell me.
So Boots Theory is like a concept where like the average person will look at a $100 pair of boots and a $300 pair of boots, and they'll say like, oh, the $100 pair is cheaper, I'm gonna get that one. But the reality is, like, if you buy the $100 pair of boots, the cheaper one, quality-wise, you're probably gonna have to buy a new pair every 1 or 2 years, especially if you're actually working in them. But if you buy like a really heavy-duty, nice pair of $300 or $400 boots, those will last you for 6 to 8 years, and you'll actually... The theory is you'll probably end up spending the same, if not a little bit more, on the cheap boots over the long run. Same thing with like cheap tools or like a cheap stool, whatever. But the side effect of that also is like, if you're buying the cheapest boots, your feet are not going to be comfortable. What's the opportunity cost of you having your fucking feet hurting every single day in these cheap boots just because they're a little cheaper? You lose money in the long run. You're much unhappier. You're much less effective in your work. So
it's true,
yeah,
and it's funny that it's called the boot theory, because I've got a ridiculous amount of money spent on work boots and dress boots and stuff for that exact same reason. If it's not comfortable and if it doesn't feel good, I'm not going to wear it. You know, and again, it's going to get torn up and stuff like that. So I spend money on quality things again because I know that it's going to last a while.
Well, our stuff isn't even that expensive too, which is like, I feel like our stuff's pretty.
But in comparison to some of this stuff, you know, people are all in your comments, right?
Yeah.
And there's a ton of...
Because there's a lot of young people that complain about they're super price sensitive and stuff. And
exactly, you know, and you can look on TikTok and you have, you know, tank tops that are, you know, 10 for 50 cents or whatever, you know, and then you've got yours that are more expensive. But the quality's better. It's going to last longer. This isn't a Forever 21. This isn't disposable clothing. I remember when I was younger, even girls, you know, with all those cheaper clothing stores, they called it disposable clothing because they would wear it once and throw it away. You know, this is something that you're going to want to wear because it is comfortable and it is a quality product. So, again, I love that, and I love the aspect that you, at your age, have created a business of quality, not only product but service and everything else. So,
and we're still trying to get that better. We definitely have, like, we've made a lot of mistakes, and there's still things we're trying to iron out. And but yeah, I feel, you know, we're only like 2 years in, and only really like a year of real business, I would say. And so we're trying to make it better. So I'm very excited, like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where the quality will be, the service will be. Because we're still young and we're trying to figure it out, but I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, not a problem. It's always, I've always said it's never the problem, it's always the solution, period. So I've got one for you. What is the biggest faceplant or loss that you have experienced in life, and how did you overcome it? I'm a reach deep. And it can be in business, it can be personal, it can be all sorts of stuff.
It was... Well, it's funny because these days I look at bad stuff and I actually like get happy because whether it's like the back against the wall type thing or a big challenge, I get happy. Like a couple months ago, I forget which day it was exactly, but a few months ago, like I checked our business bank account. It was really fucking low. It was at like $143. I have a screenshot of it. $143. There was like a $35K credit card due in like 3 or 4 days. And I've kind of like trained my mind to see that. And I didn't freak out or like start, I didn't like go crazy. I saw that, I screenshotted it. I said, this is going to be so cool to talk about in a couple of years. And now we're much past that. And it's like the business has never been doing better, which is great. But I didn't used to think that way. And a lot of it came from more personal issues than business stuff. But like, the biggest face plant was probably in college. I got cheated on, and it wasn't even really like a bad cheating. It wasn't like a whole affair where she was like sleeping with someone or something. It was just like I was out with my friends at a restaurant. I start getting texts from a ton of different people saying, like, are you still dating this girl? And my heart sank, and I was like, oh my God. But I think the reason that was so painful, and what happened, I guess let me fast backward. Post finding that out, I was like really just depressed for the rest of college. And I still put like a smile on my face, and I still went out and all this, but I think like my really good friends could tell that I was really going through it. And so like mentally, people talk about like they go to the gym to get over a heartbreak. I couldn't even go to the gym. Like I wanted to throw up every time I even sat on the bench. Like it was tough. But at the same time, I figured like, well, I'm kind of at rock bottom right now. Like I had a really big ego death because I thought I was the man, right? On campus, I was like the fraternity president. I was in the best shape of my life. I had like this bleached mohawk. I mean, I was literally king douchebag at one of the biggest party schools in the country, U of A. And I thought I was the man. I thought I was like untouchable, to be honest, because of that social setting. And then I got cheated on, and that was like the biggest slap in the face ever, hit by a truck. Because it made me realize like, oh, it could happen to anybody. So, but because of that, I really like dove fully into self-improvement. And that's when I started the business around that time. I also started doing social media. And around that same time when I was going through that heartbreak, I also like completely separated from my dad. We were really starting to like have conflict in our relationship. And we got in this big fight, and I thought I was never going to talk to him or see him again. And so there was just a lot of like personal issues happening while I was also starting the business. So the business was kind of like my escape from the personal issues. And then, fast forward a couple of years though, like my relationship with my dad has actually never been better, which I'm super thankful for. And we're really close now. And I feel very mentally and spiritually at peace, especially when it comes to like what I look for in girls and what I want in myself and in a relationship in the future. So I learned so much from that experience. But it's funny, a friend of mine who's a dating coach, he actually said, you learn a lot about business from dating, and you learn a lot about dating from business. And I had never thought of that.
No, but it makes total sense.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
I was in a relationship for quite a while, and, this girl had me damn near turned against my parents and everything else, and we were going to move, and she wanted me to join the military, and
she wanted you to join the military?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you don't
so
hear
that we could move to be away from my parents, right? Wow. And so it was this whole thing, and I was head over heels for her. She was older, and she had a heart of ice at the end of the day, right? And we had broken up, and one of the things that she said to me that sticks to me to this day that I hate but love that she said was, no matter what happens to you in life, good or bad, walk away knowing you learned something. That's how she broke up with me. So, first reaction was like, screw you, I never want to see you again. But that saying has stuck with me forever. And it's true. No matter what happens, what did you learn from it? And walk away with at least that knowledge. Good, bad, or indifferent, you learn something from everything that you do. So that's one of the things that's always stuck out with me.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny, but I've never thought about it from the business and then the personal relationship. But it's so true.
Well, it's like a business partner. A business partner is kind of like your wife in a sense, especially if it's a long-term business. You know, you're going to be with that person for a long time. Like, I'm sure there's going to be personal conflicts and issues. You might get, you know, but marriage, and that's a question I have for you actually. You know, it's a commitment for a long time. You seem like you have a beautiful marriage, a beautiful relationship. Curious how you guys, what your framework for that has been.
You know, it's funny. We met in our early years. We actually knew people that went to the same high schools and stuff like that. And she had dated someone from my high school, and she went to a different high school. But then we had kind of reconnected in the bar industry. She was a dance instructor. I worked at a country bar downtown. She, you know, was in a relationship with someone, so I just kind of looked from afar, you know, and admired from afar. We both ended up getting married, and we went kind of our separate ways. We both got divorced, but had kids from previous marriages, and that was about 15 years ago. But we had reconnected about 15 years ago over social media. Both of us had been divorced, and one of the things that was extremely important to us was our relationship with our kids and what we would not put up with or what boundaries would be. So it's funny that you bring up the business and personal, because we literally sat down, and when people ask us this, I bring this up that it was almost like a business discussion. We literally sat down on the bed on several occasions and we're like, look, these are my boundaries. These are deal breakers. You know, there's no name calling. There's no, you know, it was like we had to come up with an agreement, right? Boundaries were huge. When you're younger, you don't do those type of things. You don't sit down and you don't
Feels
go,
a little uncomfortable, honestly.
100%.
Feels a little weird.
And it does, right?
Yeah.
But being older, those are things that you had learned, right? What are the things, what are your pet peeves? What do you do that may irritate someone else? What do you want in the future? What do you want in a life? Goals. We talked about that in the very beginning. She came from she was in corporate America, did HR for years. And I think that's part of the reason why we get along so well is because she HRs my ass to death, right? Yeah. Like, we do not fight at all. She will not fight.
Nice.
And if she sees that I'm upset about something, I can be a hothead. And, you know, again, construction is a testosterone-driven industry, right? Yeah. So I can, you know, be extremely upset and, you know, be acting one way with subcontractors and suppliers and come home and she's like, this is a safe place, you're at home, you know, bring it down, right? But we will not fight. And if she sees that I'm in a mood, she'll leave me alone. And she asks a question or something and I snap a little bit, she'll go, totally get it, you know, I'll come back to this in 20 minutes, and she does. But again, creating those boundaries and understanding what each other deals with and what they want and how that, you know, you can be better together. We also I always want to do something, and personal health and wellness is big from the fact of, again, a lot of relationships, people get in relationships and then they, you know, they don't take care of themselves. Exactly. Like, they still don't have to impress or date the person that they're with. And we're huge into that. You know, we date each other still. And it's just those little things. And at the end of the day, the person you end up with is the one that you don't want conflict with, right? If that's going to be your safe space, that's got to be your safe space, you know? And we'll be in it till the end. And that's just the best thing, though. Again, she's my best friend. There's absolutely nothing on this planet that I can't tell her, and vice versa. And it's kind of funny, you know, she knows, like, some of my ex-girlfriends. I know some of her ex-boyfriends. And our whole thought on pasts is your past brought you to where you are today, right? And neither one of us are the jealous type, right? So it's always blown my mind how individuals can be upset with something that someone did or someone dated 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, when you weren't even around, right? It's not like they're doing it today. And again, they learned something from that and they're with you now. And again, their past brought them to you and to where they are today. So it's little goofy things like that, and it's thinking more with your mind and less emotion, and then allowing the emotion to come in.
I love that, man. It's crazy because, like, my mom and my stepdad have the same kind of dynamic. They both had kids, got divorced, met each other again. They also same thing. Knew each other, I think, in high school, a little bit in college. And it's funny because one of my biggest fears is like getting divorced, honestly. Like, it sounds horrible. Like, you meet who you think is going to be the love of your life, the person you're going to be with forever, your partner, your life partner, your best friend, and then it just doesn't work out, especially if you have kids. But I've met a lot of people who, because of that, it's then led to the real life partner, because they were allowed to like fully find out who they are, what they want out of their life, what they want out of a partner, and then they meet once they've matured and kind of been through life a little bit already. Yeah. And I don't know, my perspective on it has just changed a lot. But that's the thing, is like, that's one thing I'm trying to figure out right now, in all honesty, is I work a lot because I love it, like, it's the only thing I care about. And I haven't really honestly dated too much. Mm-hmm. I'm also super picky. A lot of girls, like, I'll go on a first date, I'll be like, no, right away. Yeah. Any red flag, no, see ya, right? Yep. Next thing. But I wonder if I need to lean more into that. That was one of the conversations I had on my podcast with the dating coach guy. I just had a dating coach onto the podcast as if it was almost like therapy. And I said, I'm just going to talk to this guy about my problems and record it. And hopefully that's helpful. Because I know that sounds weird. Like, what, dating coach for a guy? That's weird. But I was just curious. I was like, what is this guy? I could see
how that wouldn't be, though, right? You know, and that's something that's one of those things that's probably more or less taboo, right? Yeah. But from a growth standpoint, you grow through your teenage years, but I think especially from 18 to 24, that's a huge growth period. Yeah. 24 to even 30, right before 30, that's another massive one. And then 30 to 35. And I think once you hit 35, you are who you're going to be, right? But you have those massive growths that you can change completely as an individual. I'm a completely different person than between 18 and 24. 21 years old, I spent, 5-6 years in the bar industry. All it was about was getting drunk, getting in fights, and taking a different girl home every night. Yeah. That's all it was. And it was a game, and I knew Bristol back then. And the funny thing is we've had conversations about that. And she was like, I would have loved to date you, but it never would have worked. We would not have stayed together because I was just in that arena. That's all I cared about, right? But then I grew out of that and I left the bar industry. There became a point where I had to leave for 6 months because of the amount of drinking I was doing. And I don't think I was an alcoholic, but 4 nights a week, we'd start at 6 p.m. and I wouldn't remember past midnight. And again, I wouldn't know where I was, who I woke up with. Just had no clue. And then I worked a day job on top of that. So I just had to leave and get out of that whole scene for 6 months. And then I came back and I looked at it completely different. I didn't drink as much. And I just understood things. It was kind of funny. I've talked about this a lot in the past. Bristol and I, we liked country dance and stuff like that. And every once in a while we'll go dancing. And a lot of times we'll see the same people that were from our era of bar hopping, still doing it. Oh, wow. And you look at that and you're like, wow, they have not grown any in their life. And that's the scary thing.
And that's really sad too, especially if you want everyone around you to do well. I definitely have a lot of friends, I'm still pretty young. Yeah. So it wasn't too long ago that I was in college drinking because, once again, I went to this massive party school, drinking 3 or 4 nights a week. And it wasn't too long ago that I was there, and there's no point in being on the top of this mountain figuratively by yourself, right? It'd be so much cooler, more fun, more enjoyable to make it, whatever that means to you, right? Whether it's $1 million, $10 million, $100 million, billion, whatever. It'd be so much cooler to make it and have all of your buddies be there with you. So a lot of times, I used to be really tough on a lot of my friends in college. You guys got to get your shit together. You're fucking playing video games. It's a Sunday. We graduate in 4 months. You don't even have a job lined up. I was really tough on a lot of my buddies. And that definitely created some animosity for a while. And then eventually I just realized, I can't force anyone to do anything. And you just got to, do your best to succeed. And hopefully you can inspire them through your own actions. But yeah, it's definitely, it's really sad seeing someone who you personally think has a ton of potential, still kind of in their own ways. And I think, honestly, everyone has to hit a rock bottom. Yeah. I think life is all about like trajectory and momentum, right? So if you think about it like a ball moving around a room, right? In order for the ball to go higher, it needs to hit the floor. Just the other day, one of my buddies like pretty much lost all his money gambling. He had made like a ton of money, lost it all gambling, and he called me like super upset, and I was like, "Dude, this is great." He goes, "What the fuck do you mean this is great?"
You're all.
And I said,
"There's a lesson behind
no, because
this."
This is what happened. This is what happened. I'm not going to say his name or anything, but
Bob
made a lot of money gambling. He made a lot for my age.
Yeah.
And he also had a business idea, and it was a pretty good business idea. And I literally said to his face, I said, "Dude, do you not realize what you have right now? You just bought yourself time. You just bought yourself a year, maybe even a little longer, where you don't have to have a job. You don't need to be making money. You can just lock in, focus on your business, and you've bought yourself a year where you can become a different person." I said, don't fuck this up. Because there was a time in the past too where he did the same thing, made a ton of money, lost it all in like a week. And then he lost it all. And he called me. He's like, "Fuck, dude, I don't have any money." And I was like, "Dude, this is great." And he said, "What the fuck do you mean this is great?" I said, "You're at rock bottom." And he probably got really pissed at me saying that. But I said, "You're at rock bottom." And I said, I was there like 2.5, 3 years ago too. And this is your opportunity to bounce back and become an even better person. And it's going to be tough, and it's going to suck for a while. But I do think you need to get low enough to where you really just question everything. What am I doing? Because if you're just coasting, that's like the most dangerous place to be in my opinion, just coasting. And like making enough to have like a decent life. But you can't get out of this like this boundary that you're in. Yeah.
100%. So the thing that I love hearing is I've always thought that success is getting to a point where it feels good to help others. And I know you've started a couple groups, and you have started doing that as well, especially at the age that you're at. You know, when I was young, I was all about ego and everything else, and the last thing in the world that I would want to do is help someone else, right? I just wanted to help me.
Yeah.
And what you don't understand is when you start doing that inadvertently happens, right? You put yourself out to help other individuals, and those things come back tenfold. Tell me a little bit about some of the things that you've started and some of the mentorship, even if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I wouldn't even consider it mentorship. It's great. It's crazy because, like, you know, I have my own platform, and sometimes it can be hard. You know, as an entrepreneur, especially if you're building a business in e-com, you really don't make any money until you sell it. If you sell it, right? You're not guaranteed anything. Like, sure, you're going to learn a lot, but like you could run a business for 10 years and it could fail, but you're really not guaranteed making a lot of money unless you sell it, because in e-com, all the money needs to go back in. I think I've probably paid myself less in the past year than most of my employees, right? And some of them are part-time, right?
Yeah.
But I've had a platform for a while, and so it can be hard to be like really grinding on something, not making much money, and then seeing all of your friends who have way less of a platform selling info products, which is pure margin or pure take home. Like, you know, they make a lot of money. I have friends that are making hundreds of thousands, some of them millions, some of them tens of millions a year off of info products, and they're my age. So when you're like 23 and you're just grinding on something, and then you see someone like your age or younger driving a $500,000 car, it could be, sometimes you're like, fuck, dude. But I don't think you get into entrepreneurship to, you know, not just to make a ton of money. It's because you want to have impact, you want to build something cool. Even with all that being said, I still like would never do anything different. But finally, a couple months ago, I figured out a way to make some pretty decent money with my platform and not risk the credibility of it. I never wanted to sell like a course or an info product because for me, I knew that my audience would take it very harshly. Like they would be like, what the fuck? Like, what have you done yet? Why? I thought you said you weren't going to do this, right? Some people can do it and have great products. But for me, I kind of promised to my audience I would never sell a course unless I was super successful. But I realized I was kind of serving as like this. So got to fast backwards a little bit. When I was in college, when I was starting my platform, when I was starting social media, when I was starting my business, it was super lonely and it was very isolating, right? Didn't know. I had a lot of friends on campus. I was very well known in the school, but I didn't have any friends that were building anything. No one I could relate to. All the guys, they just wanted to watch sports and gamble. And sure, I like doing that every once in a while, but I
had to
just
think past that.
Yeah,
right?
I just wanted to like work on my stuff, and I wanted people to like talk to and get feedback from. And I just literally thought I was the only one. And then through social media, because I have a big following of young entrepreneurs, I started realizing that there's actually young guys building stuff everywhere, right down the street, 2 blocks that way, 3 blocks this way. None of them are public about it though, for good reason. People talk shit about you, they criticize you. Like if you're an entrepreneur, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, most people in your life and your early life are probably gonna not be very supportive of that, especially if it's something different, something newer. For me, like with social media, my parents didn't really understand that at first. Teachers, friends, even family members were talking shit about me. Like I had family members saying like I was embarrassing the family with my content, all this stuff. So it can be very lonely and isolating. But through social media at the same time, even though I lost a lot of old relationships, I started meeting all of these super young and brilliant guys all over the country, all different industries, e-com founders, tech and AI founders, real estate guys, crypto guys, content media guys, really cool, making a ton of money, building really cool things. And I just started connecting everyone. Hey, Dean, you should meet John, and Sam, you should meet Tahir. And I just started connecting everyone. A lot of them actually went on to create businesses with each other, made a lot of money. Like the one case study I use is like, I connected these 2 guys who went and, their business's success isn't credit to me at all, but I just made the intro. They became business partners, and they made like over $10 million together.
Wow.
And actually probably quite a bit more to this day. And it kickstarted their careers. And now they've both gone on to start multiple other businesses. They're killing it. Both of these guys are younger than me. And then one of them, I just connected with another guy who started the business together. And so I was kind of serving as like this spider between all of my friends, connecting everyone. And all of them were making more money than me. And I was like, fuck, dude, like, this is messed up,
You're
bro.
I'm trying to do what's right, man.
I'm really like, my friends
just
made $10 million, but I'm happy to see my friends succeed. So I was getting a lot of personal satisfaction and joy out of that, because I'm like, you know what, the money will come. Yeah. You just keep providing value. Yeah. But then one day I had this idea of like, okay, well, what if I turn this into like something where I can make money off of it? So I launched, essentially what it is like a high growth network for founders, creatives, athletes, artists, anyone. It's called Outliers. Okay. And it's literally for anyone who believes they are an outlier. So if you're in your early 20s up to early 30s and you've done extremely well for yourself, it doesn't have to be in business. It's I would say it's like 90% entrepreneurs, but we have like a multimillionaire artist in there. And one of the best fighters in the world is in there. And a couple big athletes and a couple big creators. And so I just wanted to make a community where guys that felt like outliers, maybe you've made a ton of money, but you're still hanging out with your college or high school friends like I was, and you just don't have anyone to talk to, because a lot of these guys don't do content. They don't have access from a personal brand. This is kind of like a safe space for them. And makes sense. I charge quite a bit for it. Like I charge $5,000 to join, and that price is going to go up with time because I'm only ever going to let in the same amount of people every cohort, which is every quarter. And so it's a business like anything. You got to grow it, but it's super low effort on my end because it all just comes from the platform. And I tell everyone that's joining, like, this isn't a mastermind. It's not coaching. I'm not teaching or really selling you anything other than access. It's just that because of my platform, because I've been super authentic and transparent talking about the mistakes I've made, I think people appreciate my content. And so I just use like essentially the exposure I get as a way to bring different people that follow me together. And I mean, I probably spend a couple hours like a week on it, and it makes pretty good money, and it's pretty high margin.
Yeah.
So finally, I'm very happy about that. I have something that I can, make money off of. And then I don't have to take any out of the business, which is great because like my new one of my advisors, who is probably going to come on as our CFO, made a really good point to me. He's like, every dollar that you keep in right now, profit-wise, could be $5 to $10 when you exit, right? At a bare minimum. Like if I were to pay a lot of young entrepreneurs will pay themselves ridiculous salaries. You're paying yourself $100,000 a year. You're not only taking away from the growth of the company, but if you were to exit, that extra $100,000 on your balance sheet is probably going to be somewhere between like 500 to $1 million in terms of an exit, depending on your industry. Obviously, you need to put food on the table and pay your rent.
Yeah.
That's why I'm very happy about this now, because like you don't need to take a big salary.
Well, and you've curated a group of people.
Yeah.
You know, that there's a process. You're not just allowing any and everybody to join this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure there's curation involved and things of that nature.
Oh, yeah.
And again, those are things that not many people your age have done, nor do many people your age even think about an exit, right? Or go that far in depth into that. So you've been surrounded by individuals that you've met due to situations, right? You said that, you know, you felt alone in college because, again, it's a fun time, right? And I actually used something that you had said before, and it was on a video or something with one of my youngest. And you had said, you know, everybody says that in your 20s you're supposed to be having the time of your life and this, that, and the other, and you're like, that's bullshit. You need to be hustling. You need to be busting your ass now, creating that foundation for your future.
Yeah. But the truth is, it really doesn't take that long to create a foundation.
It doesn't.
Especially these days with the technology available, like AI, and just being able to leverage certain things. Like, I tell a lot of people who watch my content, some people see my content, they go, bro has no fun. Dude, I have a pretty awesome fucking life, and I'm very grateful for that. Like, we get to do some really cool stuff, and a lot of it I get to write off, which is even better because I just like meeting cool people. So if it's like over a dinner or whatever, it's a write-off. But with that being said, like, it really only took 2 years. 2 years, maybe, if that, to like, and I wasn't even fully locked in. Like, I think if you cut off the world, and doesn't mean like don't talk to your parents or catch up with your friends every once in a while, but if you just put your head down and say, I'm not going to go drink or spend money on dumb stuff for 2 years, you can create an epic foundation for yourself to the point where you will be making good money, you will have freedom, you will have optionality and access to people.
And it becomes addictive.
Yeah.
Right? Not in a bad sense, but you just want to do better and you want to be better. And so it's like, and then that's where, to your point in this new venture you started, you just want to start helping others, right? Because you see how easy it is. And it's not a course, it's not this, that, or the other. It's true, authentic self that people love, you know? And if you share that, people see that. People can read through bullshit real easy, right? And it's those that feel like they have to put that mask on that are the ones that end up hating and, you know, throwing shitty comments and stuff like that at you.
It's actually crazy. I'm going to steal this from my friend. I feel the same way. He is big on social media, much bigger than me. And he made a video the other day where he said, you know, you guys probably think that I play a character with my content because I act crazy and I do all this, you know, questionable stuff. He goes, the truth is, he's like, I've never felt like I could be myself before I started doing social media.
Wow.
And so he said, he said like in real life, he wasn't that likable by people because he was wearing a mask, right? In college and high school. He was wearing a mask. He was saying and doing what other people wanted to see and hear. And because of that, he wasn't very popular. I mean, I even kind of relate to that myself, especially in like high school. But then when you think about social media, the people who have the most success are usually the ones that have like the loudest personalities, right? They're the craziest types of people, they're always energetic. And I really think social media, you know, the creatives, the one that stand out are the ones who are different, right? So I do actually think that, you know, being yourself and just letting go and allowing yourself to do and say whatever you want actually brings people to you, which is like kind of contrary to what most people think.
100%, because I think a lot of those people that enjoy that content wish that they could be themselves.
Yeah.
And they can't. They still feel like they have to be held up behind that mask. Yeah. So that's an outlet for them. They sit there and they go, wow, I wish that I could do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And no matter what, you know, being, you know, political, this, that, or the other, you know, people want to have a voice that some people have and are comfortable having.
Yeah.
You know, so it's real interesting that you bring that up. So last question. I kind of know the answer to this, but what do you see Squid doing in the next 5 years? And this can't be the end. You know, are there anything, you know, anything that's new in the works that you're kind of thinking about that you would like to do as well? What's kind of 5 years look like, and what are some of the endeavors you're looking at going forward? Because again, Post-it notes, brother. You sell Post-it notes, I'm in.
It's crazy because 5 years doesn't seem like a long time in the grand scheme of things, but I only started this business 2.5 years ago. Like I said, it's only been like a real, it was a garage band clothing brand for half of that. And so that's really like so far away. I mean, that's like, I think 5 years ago is like almost like when I was a sophomore in college. So I have no idea. And it's funny, recently I've been trying to focus less on the output, more on the input. Like last year, all my goals last year were followers, money. I want to do this much in revenue. I want to have this many followers. And I had what I call the Shopify curse, which is where you just open up your Shopify app and you refresh it every chance you get on your phone. I still do this a lot, and you just check what the sales are that day. Mm-hmm. It does absolutely nothing for the betterment of the business, for furthering the goal, right? Mm-hmm. It just makes you upset if your sales are bad. And if they're good, you're just like, oh, okay, they're where they're supposed to be, right?
Yep.
So this year and moving forward, I've been trying to focus a lot more on the input. Just like, I'm going to bring on this many new athletes. We're going to carry this many new good products. We're going to improve these parts of the business, bring on these employees, and just see what happens with the output. Like, obviously, I have to, we were just talking about this before we went live. When it comes to like investors and getting people to buy in, like you have to give revenue targets and profit targets because they want to see like what your plan is. And I think it's very important to have a plan. But sometimes that I actually might take away from the ultimate goal, I think. Mm-hmm. So
what is that ultimate goal then?
Well, originally I thought I wanted like an exit. I was like, I want to sell this thing in 4 years for over $100 million. Like that's what I thought would make me happy. And then one of my like best friend's dads, who he's not a mentor, but I probably look up to this guy more than I do anybody else. Mm-hmm. He's got like 6 kids, craziest house ever. Everything is combined. So my parents would always say like, I'd be like, why don't you guys start your own business? I'd say, oh, we don't have time. Mm-hmm. And they'd be like watching a movie every single night. You guys have plenty of time. Why don't you guys don't hang out with that many other people? Why not? Well, we don't have time. And then I would see my best friend's dad had like literally the life I've always dreamed would be the goal. And he would do business with the same people that he would socialize with. So we would be hanging out by the pool when I was a kid, and he would bring over his new business partner who he just did some deal with. And that guy would bring his wife and his kids. And so he'd be getting family time with friends, and creating profitable, good business with good people. And that's what he said to me one time. He's like, I will never do business with anyone who I feel like I couldn't bring to my house and have my kids meet their kids. And that's super important for him. And when I told him my plan of like, I want to sell it for this much money in 4 years, he's like, why? He said, why, dude? He said, do you think that'll make you happy? He goes, do you respect me? Do you like me? I said, yeah, dude, you're like Superman to me. He goes, I'm telling you that won't make you happy, right? Obviously, I want to create some sort of liquidity event for my shareholder. Yeah. Maybe that's an IPO. Maybe that's raising again, allowing someone to come up and buy the shares, right? Because that's only fair. But I don't know. I'm just focusing on the input right now.
And you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
And that's, again, it goes back to that my whole mindset of investing in people, not companies.
Yeah.
And because you're constantly evolving, that answer should constantly change.
I'm sure
right?
it will. Yeah.
And there's just going to be different milestones in life that you'll hit and you'll look at and you'll go, what's best now? Yeah. Right. And that's one of the reasons, again, and I'll say it forever, Post-it notes. I don't give a shit. Right. You know, we'll be there. Period. So with that said, I want that evolution because even if the goal still was, you know, sell out in 4 years, then you're going to become stagnant until you hit that 4-year note, right? And then then what?
Yeah.
And to his point, okay, cool, you sell for $100 million. Well, now what?
Yeah.
What do you do now, right? It doesn't mean that you can't have an exit, right? But if that's your only goal, that may throw your mindset off a little bit, right? Of what your true unanswered goal is that you don't even know what it is yet.
Maybe I'll figure it out. We were just talking before. I don't know if this is too much for the podcast, but I was on. Can I bring this up?
Do it.
Talking about before. So I was just on another guy's podcast a couple of days ago, who's also a very successful entrepreneur like yourself, and you know, I'm big on mushrooms, and you know, I think they're great. They unlock stuff in the brain, and I was thinking about like spending $2,000, $2,500 to hire this guy who you're supposed to sit down with for an entire day, and he's supposed to help you unlock the deepest parts of your brain using like a very heavy dose of mushrooms. And
I'll do it with you, and we can trade stories once it's done.
Yeah,
I'll do it
I'm
hands down because I would
yeah.
love to. I mean, I'm huge in psilocybin. There's just things that grow out of the ground. There's a reason why pharmaceutical companies don't want you to touch it.
Yeah,
because it's going to take revenue away from them. And if it came out of the ground, you know, it's different if you're mixing it in a bathtub, right?
For sure.
But there's proven, you know, scientific facts that back up psilocybin and PTSD and all sorts of stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, we are not supposed to, you know, governmentally and publicly draw from and hit and access parts of our brains that those things can have. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're a druggie or anything else. I'm huge into microdosing.
Yeah.
I'm extremely ADD, so I can do, you know, a little bit of microdosing, and there is nothing that makes my brain perform better than that. Empty stomach, cup of coffee, you know, and a little microdose, I'm good. And you don't feel anything. It's the matter of there's no crash, there's no nothing like that. Just at the end of the day, I look back and I go, wow, I was super productive, and I concentrated extremely well on this, that, and the other. And I want to learn more about it. And I think, too, with the health and wellness industry, it's going to lean more and more into that.
Yeah.
Between that and ketamines and things like that. The research is already there. So,
well, apparently, like it's taboo to talk about it or whatever, but the most successful people, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, all these guys, like, apparently they do it a lot, and it's not talked about very much. And who knows who else does it too.
Yep.
But I would imagine if they're doing it, there's probably something to gain.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And a lot of times when you hear it and then you do find out, you're like, holy cow, I never would have imagined. But then when you think of that and you put it on those spectrums, it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
You know, because it allows you to unlock those areas of your brain that you can't access otherwise. So I'm down. We'll do it and trade stories.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it.
Sounds good.
Well, I appreciate you coming on very much.
Thank you for having me, man.
Again,
pleasure.
Super proud of you. I use you as an example with my boys and with everybody that I talk to. Again, that I'm proud to know you and very excited for your future. And if there's anything that we can do to help out, we're all access.
Well, thank you, man. And also thank you for believing in us. Like, seriously.
Absolutely.
It wouldn't happen. We need investors for a reason. We want to grow this thing fast. And so, yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Sweet.